History is a tool used by politicians to justify their intentions. Ted Koppel. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Today, I have a guest on. We are going to speak with Bruno Pereira. He is running for the for New Jersey Congressional District number 9. So let's get right to it and bring him on. Bruno, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. All right. So you're in New Jersey, you're running, and there's some I was looking up some of your opponents and I was like, well, that's interesting. But before we get to them,
Yes,
let's
sir.
talk about you. So you're running. What motivated you to run in the first? Why would you do you not like yourself to run for political office? Tell us what's going on.
uh, I guess I don't. Well, like many Americans, you look at the current situation, you look at inflation, you look at the economy, you look at the price of things just skyrocketing. And I said, I have to do something. I have to step up. I have to do something to help my fellow Americans, to help especially younger Americans and older Americans that are
Mhm,
the ones that get impacted at the most. So that was the reason for me to run. I just couldn't take it anymore. All the bad policies, all the runaway inflation.
mhm.
So I had to step up.
And when you decided to step up, why this particular position? Why not something else like mayor or, whatever, anything else?
So like a mayor is more of a microcosm. You can't
Mhm,
really affect the policies that you need in order to help the most Americans that you can.
mhm,
My objective is to help as many people as I can. So congressman is the first step of that. I think that I have a good understanding of the economy, a good understanding of the inflation. So once again, I want to help as many people as I can, and this was the very first step for it.
gotcha. And what is your primary what are the prime like, tell me about the actually, before we get to your issues,
Sure.
um, what kind of, like, events are you going to? What kind of outreach are you doing? Are you just simply doing door knocking? Have you been on radio shows? Are you going to local events? Like, where are people likely to find you?
I do a lot of door knocking. I do a lot of street fests. I am outside of where large people would gather. I am within my community. North Arlington, for example, is where I graduated from. It's where I got married, where my kids got baptized, where my kids
Mhm.
go CCD. We also have a large Portuguese community, which is where I'm from. I'm from Portugal. So also within my community, that's how I've spread most of my work. However, now, doing a lot of media podcasts, and I'm trying to get um, some legacy media, some newspapers, some radios, things like that. I am wrapping up those right now.
Gotcha. Now I just want to point out that I'm having a little bit of audio trouble. I don't know if it's coming through to the audience, but for me it is. So I may
Okay.
have to ask you, to repeat or something like that. So
Sure.
please bear with me. Seems like there's an internet connection that's not cooperating today, but we will get through it. No big deal. So, all right. So you're running for Congress, District 9. I started looking up some of your opponents, and what I found was, well, it's a little unique.
Yes.
Now, as a rule of thumb, libertarians are the underdog. But it seems like circumstances might trying to think of a way to say this, and people will understand in just a moment. And I'm sure you know exactly where I'm going, but circumstances might have given you a little bit of an assist in a sense, or an opportunity for an assist. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm seeing here, one of your opponents passed away, the initial one. So it looked like the Democrat that won the primary, Bill Pascrell, he was originally going to be your Democratic opponent, but he has he passed away.
Correct.
And so now, and what's interesting is he raised a fair amount of money before he passed away. So, from what I can tell, it looks like he raised about $1.2 million, and I assume that that money now just either goes back. I don't really know what New Jersey laws how they dictate
Yeah.
candidate funds, but I assume it's not going to go to the person that's now running as the Democrat. That'd be Nelly, and I think is it Pooh?
I think it's Poe.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
like,
I
it
think
can't
so.
be Pooh. It can't be. No way.
No.
Like, okay, Poe. So we'll go with Poe. So Nellie Poe is now running, and according to FEC records, she has raised $0. So she has no money. I mean, I'm sure she has some. Maybe it's just not. The it hasn't caught up just yet for the reporting. And then Billy Prempe has raised 16,000. So basically, it sounds to me like Nellie has $0 reported at FEC, and Billy has $16,000 at the FEC. I didn't see you at the FEC in the listing whatsoever.
Mhm.
And then Bill Pascal, he died, so his $1 million doesn't help. It doesn't contribute to this particular run. So, am I missing anything there, or did I get this all correct?
You got it all correct. Yes.
All right. So, does this help you in any way in terms of running for office, or
It
how
might.
has?
Yeah, it might. A lot of people, especially in my district, are non-affiliated,
Mhm,
so they are looking for other solutions. Um, Mr. Pascal, he was our congressman for a number of years now. He was
mhm.
also the oldest congressperson in office. I believe, he passed away at the age of 88, if I am correct.
Wow.
Yep. um, which brings to a lot of my points, of my ideas, right? I mean, you're 88, you're not well. Should you be running? Probably not, right?
Right.
However, within my district, 44% um, of the voters are non-party affiliated. So
Mhm.
those are independents. There's a large percentage of independents now within my district. So I think that helps me a lot. People are not happy with someone within the Democratic Party that was not voted for. So I think
Okay.
that will also help a lot, right? Because they had a week to put somebody else,
Mhm.
and people are not happy with not having a democratic process for that. I
You're
just want
talking
to say
about
that.
for your opponent. You're not
Or
talking about
Poe, and
president.
I'm talking about Kamala now.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about that then. So,
Yeah,
first and foremost, so your opponent just kind of got selected, not elected, if you will.
correct. Mhm.
Um, and you said a lot of people are not happy about that. Does that, or to your knowledge, does that build upon any of the conversations regarding Kamala Harris? Because a lot of times these down ballot tickets and all that kind of work together. There's a symbiotic relationship. So I'm wondering if that adds to it,
I
kind of
think so.
like the
Yeah.
disgruntled nature. How in what ways are you playing on that, or can you?
Mostly directed at the Democratic voter, those
Hmm.
people who are registered as Democratic. I'm pointing it out. You guys are the party of democracy, right? You guys are the Democrats. How are you comfortable with people that was just put in that position? Your Democratic vote is being taken away from you,
Hmm.
right? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about that? And a lot of people, they'll smile and say, "Well, it's the party." And say, "Well, we're a country or we're a party. Which one are we?" And a lot of people that agree say, "Yeah, we should have had a different way of doing it, right?" I mean, especially within the presidential, because you had Dean Phillips, for example, who was running. You had RFK who was running.
Hmm.
Uh, you had Mary Williamson that was also running, right? So there's a lot of people that wanted to step up and go through the democratic process. So people are upset about that. They feel that they were cheated. They feel that they were lied to. Um, so maybe they'll have an impact, or maybe they'll just keep voting blue as they always have. So.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So, I was not able. And maybe you'll indulge me here. What have you raised so far for your campaign?
So I am not going to raise anything
Oh,
This campaign. Yeah.
okay.
So
Do tell, do tell. And
yeah,
that wasn't like a, "Oh, I can't believe he did this." It was like, "Oh, that's surprising." But it's
yeah,
not something I've actually heard this before from other candidates, not
yeah,
very often, but I'm definitely interested in hearing your rationale and
yeah.
what your plan is, because as a rule of thumb, people tend to think of politics as revolving entirely around money. If you
Hmm.
have lots of money, then the chances of you getting elected go up tremendously. It's never a guarantee, especially when other people have lots of money as well. But it does tremendously help out. So tell me your rationale, and
Yeah,
then tell me what you're doing to secure a vote that's going to compensate for not necessarily raising money.
yeah. So I think that we should put country above party anytime. I also think that we should put country above politicians and above donors.
Hmm.
Um, to me, the parties are beyond repair because of all the money that they have taken in. They're kind of subservient to the donors. I do not want to be in that position. I do not want to take money that I will see as a gateway to bad decisions.
Hmm.
My policies are pretty much Americans first. I want to put the American people first.
Okay.
And I feel that I can't do that if I'm getting money from corporations, from large donors, whatever. Even if it's just the maximum, right?
Hmm.
Which is not a lot, just a few $1,000s. I don't want to have that in my conscience. I want to
Hmm.
be able to put the American people first, and I want to make sure that that's my only focus, just the American people.
Okay.
Will it hurt? Probably, right? It's not as much reach as you have with ads and everything else.
Hmm.
However, to me, this is a marathon. This is not a race.
Hmm.
This is election probably won't be the first one. I want to build a coalition around the people. I want to bring people with me. I want people to believe in what I want to do for them.
Hmm.
And with that, I need to be, fully free, no encumbrances, no money behind it. I want to make sure that the people understand what I want to do for them, and I want them to believe in me, and I want them to follow me. So
Okay.
what I'm doing is hitting the ground, talking with people, showing them what I want to do for them, how my policies will help them rather than hurt them, pointing out flaws in the policies of the other candidates, which there are a lot of flaws, of course,
Hmm.
especially when it comes economically, when it comes to inflation. So I want to build a coalition that will be strong. I don't want to build something that is false just based on ads and money.
Okay. All right. Well, let me tell you this. If you create a video ad, I will play it on this show, you know,
Thank you.
during my intermission. So you just create a video ad, and it's up to you to follow any applicable laws in terms of advertising. But I will, so there's a freebie for you.
Thank you.
Um, okay, so you're hitting the ground running. Good. Then uh, what has been the response from people when you talk to them? When you knock on the door and you're like, "Hey, Miss Jones, Mr. Smith, I'm running for office. Here's my platform. Here's what I'm doing." What has been their response? What are people telling you?
What people tell me the most is that they're concerned about the economy. It
Mhm,
doesn't matter if they're Republicans, if they're Democrats, if they're independents. They care about their pocket. They care about going to ShopRite or going to Acme and be like, I can't afford food anymore, right? I need
mhm,
to cut back in other things just so that I could afford to put food for my kids on the table. That's the number one concern is that they can't put food on the table like they used to. So the economy is number one. Immigration is a topic that comes up a lot. Also, I do hear from a lot of people from both sides. They are concerned about immigration, especially in New Jersey. We are very densely populated. So if you're going to introduce a large number of people, of course, there's going to impact everybody else. So
mhm,
immigration in New Jersey is also another concern. And then the third one is accountability. No one is holding anyone accountable. I went to Patterson. I spoke with a bunch of people there, and the message was all the same. We have the laws, we have the police, we have the money. What is missing is accountability. No one enforces the laws. No one holds the politicians accountable. No one holds the police accountable. So things are going from bad to worse because there's no accountability. So that's what
mhm,
people are looking for. They're looking for economic relief. They're looking for a solution to immigration, which is easier said than done, right?
Mhm.
And they're looking, of course, for accountability. They want people to be accountable. They want people to be able to lose their jobs, not have a 90% reelection rate, even though your approval rate is 10 or 12,
Mhm.
whatever it is now, right? So there's no accountability, and people are not happy with that.
Gotcha. And are you as a candidate being received well, or because
100%.
because here's what, and I know that's kind of weird to ask you, because if you're like, if they're not, then who wants to tell it,
Yeah.
right? But when I used to, like, in when Trump was running the first time, I remember I would be at a gun show with our local
Mm.
libertarian affiliate, and people would say, "Man, I love the libertarians. I totally want to vote for them, but not this election," right? Like they would give me this line, like, "Man, I love you guys. You guys are great. You have all these great ideas, but this election is not the one," right? And I feel like
Mm.
I haven't heard that this election because I haven't been out and about as much as I was back then, but um, I imagine that I would hear something similar. I do see it online sometimes where people, they come just shy of saying, "You know what? This election is too important." You know that line. This is the most important election of our lifetimes. We totally got to vote this way or this way, depending on whether they're red or blue. So people have received you well, and they're looking forward to voting for you.
I'll say,
I mean, I know not everybody,
yeah,
but I'm
not
just
everybody. Yeah, most people agree with what I want to do. Most people
okay.
like my policies.
Okay.
I'll get a small pushback, say, "Oh, maybe that point I don't think is good." However, overall, people understand what I'm trying to do, especially in New Jersey. We are the number one tax state in the U.S.,
Okay.
and that hurts us a lot because a lot of our income is going towards taxation. So
Hmm.
people understand, they see what I'm trying to do, and they're
Hmm.
very receptible. Some will say, "Listen, I'm a Republican. My parents were a Republican. I'm going to vote Republican."
Right.
Right? And that's okay. Listen, if you prefer party over your own well-being, who am I to say anything, right?
Right.
After all, I am libertarian, not authoritarian.
Right.
So,
Right.
you vote whichever way you want.
Gotcha.
However, next time around when I come, let's at least recognize what that vote did, right? So, I do try to tell people, listen, I'm putting you first, and that's my only objective. Here are my policies. Here's what I want to do for the people of New Jersey. Vote for me. If you can't, that's okay. I'll be back next time, and we'll have a conversation. So I never had anyone rude. No one ever,
Mhm.
saying anything out of pocket, anything rude. So I am thankful for all the conversations I have had and for all the feedback that I've gotten.
Mhm.
I've learned a lot, so I'll take that as a positive.
Gotcha. Now I'm gonna make it a presumption here.
Mhm.
Where you're running, just based on information from Ballotpedia, it does seem that you're running in a blue area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So even though that your prior opponent, I'm not sure how to describe him, your former opponent, I'm not, Mr.
Yeah.
Pasquarel, even though he passed away, I don't want to talk too ill of the dead, but we can talk about his record. What is your general perspective of his time in office? Like, what are some things that maybe that you would have done differently? And if you can, focus on things that people have been receptive to.
So Mr. Pasquale was your typical blue.
Hmm.
He was probably center left when he first started, and then as progressed, got a little more progressive with the times. Um, he just voted to authorize FISA,
Hmm.
the warrantless searches. Um, he went in line with the Democrats, of course. What I
Right.
would have done differently, once again, New Jersey is the highest tax state in the US.
Hmm.
I would have tried to look for relief for the people of the United States. The Democratic Party is a coalition, they all walk in step.
Hmm.
And that can hurt the American people, and that could hurt the people of New Jersey the most. So I would have most definitely had focused more on the people of New Jersey. I would have focused on policies that would have helped us the most, especially the SALT taxation, where people are being double taxed, sometimes even triple taxed. And I think that that's very unfair. right? Why should I mean taxation in itself? It's a bad principle, especially the way that it's done. But why should people be taxed 2, 3, 4 times on the same income? That to
Right.
me immoral. Um, Social Security benefits. I think that he should have fought for that also. I don't think that people should be taxed on their Social Security benefits.
Mhm.
Right? You put in your whole life, right? People work 40, 50 years. They're 75, 80, 85 now, and now they're getting taxed still. So I think that that's also not a good thing. And inflation. He voted for all the spending bills. He never fought to curb spending. He never fought for the American people to have a chance with inflation. So I would have most definitely stand up to that. Even if it means shutting down the government for a month, 2 months, 3 months,
Mhm.
whatever it is, the American people need help. So that's what I would have done differently. I would have fought for the American people. I would have fought for their wallet. I would have fought for the people in New Jersey, and I would have tried to give them some relief when it comes to taxation.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So in terms of your two opponents, where do you differ between those two? And we can start with
Mm.
Nelly. I tried to look up, it doesn't appear that she has a campaign site yet.
Yeah,
At least,
too new. Yeah,
yeah, not that I've seen. So I can't look and see what kind of policies that she's promoting. But do you know of any that you've seen, maybe through advertisements or at
I have
events or
not.
anything?
No, no. So she was selected.
Hmm.
I think it was the 23rd, 24th of August.
Hmm.
She has not put anything forth yet. I mean, she is a state assemblywoman,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. So there's some record, there's some idea of what she's voted for, what she's done.
Right.
I will assume her being Democrat, she's just going to fall in step with all the other Democrats.
Right.
You can't really stand out in the Democratic Party, or they'll just show you the door.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, I'm taking a look, and she is. I mean, I could see the bills that she's sponsored, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to try to go into those. But I was just like, I don't really know what her policies are, which I guess is okay because I live here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yep.
But like, it looks like she won for New Jersey State Senate District 35, 69% to the Republican challenger, 31%. So, she seems to be doing fairly well in terms of her electoral history.
Yes.
Um, so I guess she's got a good reputation with the voters. Is kind of how
Hmm.
I'm taking that. So, okay, so we don't know what she's about, this is the whole Kamala Harris. This is so weird because, like, I wouldn't have expected, like, everything that we've complained about, we as people in general, when it comes to Kamala Harris, like, hey, she was selected, she wasn't elected by the Democratic voters. I think they did follow up later, but I don't really count that as quite the same. And then a lot of people were like, "Well, what are your policies? You're literally running for president and you have no policies in it." In her case, it should have been relatively easy because she had previously run for president, so she could at least maybe dust off some of her old ones and recycle a few of those, I
Hmm.
assume. And then I would assume the same thing for Nelly as well, since she has run for office, even though this is a different office that she's running for. Maybe she, can say, "Hey, like some of these policies that I've talked about in the past are now still relevant." And then I went over to what's his name, Billy's site,
Billy.
Billy
Yeah.
Pepe. Um, I'm just gonna be honest, the site is rough looking. It didn't I was having some trouble with it. It didn't
Yeah.
seem to want to work, and it's
There's a lot of
frankly,
visuals too. So if
yeah,
people are sensitive, like visually sensitive, it's not a good website.
it's very. And then let's see if I'm clicking on things and it's dropping it. It's not a very nice looking site, but hey, whatever. Um, where do you differ between him? Like, what are some of the things that you believe make you stand out as a better candidate
Hmm.
on policy issues, policy differences?
Yeah. I have looked at his policies in depth. I have looked at what he wants to do.
Mhm,
Ideally, he has somewhat of a sense of the direction he wants to go. Just he
mhm,
doesn't have policies towards it. His education, for example, he wants to create a vote tax, which New Jersey already has dozens of vote tax, but he wants to bring that to all the schools. And the way that he wants to do it is he wants to give tax breaks to corporations.
Okay.
So more tax breaks, typical Republican policies. Within the economy, he wants to give more corporate welfare. He wants to cut taxes for corporations again.
Hmm.
When it comes to war, he wants a direct democracy. He wants people to vote for war. So he wants to take away the power of Congress, which is to vote for war, right? The budgetary control also. So he wants to take that away from Congress, which is in the Constitution. So it's an assault of the Constitution. And he
Hmm.
wants to declare a direct democracy. So if we are to go to war, he wants the people to vote for, not Congress, which is our constitutional um,
Right.
authority, right?
I mean, I can see the appeal as a libertarian who happens to be anti-war at the same time.
Yeah, of course.
Um, because I would imagine that if it was a direct vote for war, that from the people, that it would probably, I don't know, we one of two things would happen. Either we would almost never go to war, or we would be hit with a lot more propaganda to get people to
A
buy
hundred
in.
percent. Yeah.
So, one of those 2 they might have to resurrect, some of the old, like, who is it? I think Walt Disney did some propaganda, and
Yep.
then also did, Dr. Seuss. I think he did some
Hmm.
propaganda as well for World War II. So they might have to, resurrect those guys.
Yeah.
But so that's an interesting idea, but you're right, it is in the Constitution, and you'd have to make a constitutional change for that to happen. So that's interesting. It's an interesting policy, but anyway, go ahead and continue. I'm sorry, I was just a little
No, it's okay. The
your
one thing.
your
Yeah.
race just seems so interesting because you have so many things that are different from other races that I've seen. It just like
Yes.
you had a candidate who passed away, now you have a new one that they don't have any money, but they also happen to be the Democrat who happens to be the stronghold, in that area. Then you've got a Republican. He's raised a little bit of money, doesn't appear to be a whole lot, in my opinion. And then he's got some weird ideas. So I'm like, all right, well, the libertarian weird ideas aren't going to sound so bad, I guess. So it's like you got like this weird thing going on there in District 9 for New Jersey. All right, so
Yeah.
go ahead, continue. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah. So it just more of the Republican idea with some of the Trump ideas also.
Mhm.
So tariffs. He wants to keep tariffs in China and maybe even escalate them. Only thing that I do agree is veterans. We have not taken good care of veterans. The
Mhm.
VA is, I don't want to disparage the federal government, but horrible.
Right.
Right. So those things I do agree. Right. We made a promise to people who are willing to
Mhm.
sacrifice themselves for this country. So we most definitely need to take better care of them. 100%.
Right.
So that I do agree with them. We need to do a lot better. I don't think shifting federal money from one place to the other is the way to do it. I think that there could be other better solutions, but I think that that's where we can have a discussion. That's where Mr. Billy Prampy and myself we could sit down and discuss. Which I have invited him a couple of times. He very passively aggressive, keeps saying no, which is fine. But I think that we could at least come to some consensus in that. Economically, there's no policy. There's no understanding of inflation. There's no
Mhm.
understanding of the economy. Tax credits for businesses are not going to cut it. We need something for the people,
Mhm.
not for more corporations. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
mhm.
Let's take a look at your policy items that you have on your website that actually is functional and working. And I'm pointing that out because, too often I've come across libertarians and their websites are the ones that need a little help. And
Yeah.
this time it feels like you're on your game. Nelly doesn't have one. Maybe in fairness, just because, she just recently got into the race. So
Hmm.
maybe a little bit of flexibility there. And then Billy's got a website, but it's not like I didn't particularly care for his site. And but whatever. I mean, maybe I'm just being partisan because I'm a libertarian too. Maybe that's
Sure.
what's going on. So here's your site. Here we got that up on the screen. And Bruno Pereira for Congress. And your highlighted issues are fiscal responsibility, transparency, and education. So if you would on each of these, just do me a favor. Tell me what your argument to make the appeal to New Jersey voters is, like, hey, this is the problem, this is what I've identified that could be better, and then here is my solution. So like just kind of like a quick 1-2, like
Sure.
problem solution for each one of these.
Yeah. So top of mind, of course, is fiscal responsibility.
Mhm.
As people keep seeing our dollar keeps being worth less and less,
Mhm.
inflation is eating away everyone and all of their buying power. So fiscal responsibility plays a really big role. $35 trillion in debt. I believe they said by 2030 is going to be 50 trillion. So we're not stopping. We keep destroying the dollar, and that is affecting everyone, especially the people in New Jersey. So
Mhm.
fiscal responsibility starts with understanding the issue, which is the printing of money, which is the debt created by the government, and I want to put a stop on that. Some of the immediate relief that I want to give to people is to have $40,000 of your first income tax free. In New Jersey, that's the poverty line for a family of four. So give
Okay.
some relief to the people of New Jersey just to begin, and people of throughout the country, of course. What I also want to do is I want to incentivize the government to not do this again. The way that I want to do it is I want to index the tax brackets to CPI at 1.5 times. So if the government goes out of control and inflation goes out of control again, they're going to be penalized because now you're going to take in less taxes.
Okay.
So the
So
way for
let's
the
hold on
yeah,
before you go too far on this. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm an average voter.
hmm
Okay. Like, and I'm not trying to dog my fellow Americans, but what you just said, like, okay, I don't know about CPI. I don't know if, like, break that down, or
sure,
as they would say on the internet, explain it like I'm five. So what does
sure,
that mean for the voters? Because we're bombarded with a lot of information, a lot of promises, a lot of numbers,
hmm
and all that good stuff. So break that down in the simplest terms so that any voter could understand what exactly that means.
sure, sure. So anytime that the government prints, well, not the government, the Federal Reserve prints money in order to fund the government itself, what they're doing is they're making your dollar worth less because now there's more dollars. So now there's less value to your dollar.
Mhm.
We measure that via the consumer price index or the CPI. Even though it is a manipulated number, it is something that we must use and that all industry use. So I want to use the number of whatever inflation that they report. I want to use that in order to increase the tax brackets of every American. So, for example, if inflation is up 2% in a year, I want the tax brackets to go up 3%.
Okay.
If inflation is 5%, I want the tax rates to go up to 7.5%.
Okay.
If inflation is 10%, which is what was now at the peak, I want the tax brackets to go up 15%.
Okay.
So the incentive, I think that we need to change the incentive structure for government because now the incentive structure is just to spend. There is no consequences to it. Also,
Right.
inflation is good for the government. The more inflation in the system, the more they receive in taxes. Because now goods are more expensive, so they're going to take more taxes there.
Right.
Incomes have to go up, so now they're going to take more taxes in it. Inflation is good for the government, but hurts the people. I want to change the incentive structure. And we do that by taking away their tax dollar.
Got it.
So if
Got it.
inflation is up 10%, the tax brackets go up 15%. Now the government is losing on that. The
Right. So they're
incentive,
incentivized. They're incentivized to do the right thing by not inflating the dollar,
mhm,
because that means they will have less tax revenue coming to them. Right.
correct.
That's effectively what you've got going on. And I want to point out something, folks.
Mhm,
Politicians are great at counting two things. They're not good at much anything else, but these two things they are great at counting: money and votes. They can count money, they can count votes. Don't believe anybody that says anything otherwise. They are great at counting both of those. And so I think this kind of taps into, you know, like what is more natural for a politician, like counting dollars. Okay, you know, so that's an interesting point. I like it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Did,
thank you.
go
No,
on.
it's okay. So now what is the solution for the government? right? Because we can't just take money away from them because there's still services that might need to be ran, right?
Mhm.
The solution for the government is to responsibly grow the economy. As GDP grows, as the gross domestic product grows, so does the economy. So does the tax base. So we
Mhm.
could have a sensible inflation rate with a high growth of the economy, just so that the government could still take whatever dollar amount they need to take. So the incentive is not to punish the American people, not to do it the irresponsible way, which is printing dollars however, whenever they want it, but to actually grow the economy, to allow the American people to flourish, right? To have people use their money in the companies that they want, not have the government pick winners and losers, right? Subsidies and everything else that they do, that's picking winners and losers. Let the American people do it. I think that the voting power via the dollar of 330 million people is a lot more powerful than the voting of 453 people in the chamber. So I want those 330 million people to decide every day with their dollar what's important to them and what they want to see succeed, not the government. So
Okay.
that's in essence is my fiscal responsibility. Condensed.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then let's jump over to transparency then. That shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, I could almost guess at probably stuff, and I would probably be correct, but you go ahead and tell us.
Yes. So transparency. Once again, it comes back to how they use the money.
Mhm.
Also comes back to what are they doing with our money? Where is our money going? Let's be transparent. Corporations are forced to show their dollars every day. Corporations are forced quarterly and annually to do reports. Why isn't that the government? The government is the largest consumer. They don't make any money. They spend our money.
Mhm.
So they have responsibility to be transparent to the people. The people should be able to audit the government. We should be able to see where our money's going. We should be
Mhm.
able to see where money's being spent. Granted, there might be some programs. Okay, maybe there's a national security reason to maybe hide that, right?
Mhm.
We're developing the next generation bomber, and we don't want anyone to know. Understandable. Everything else, we should be able to see. We should be able to control. We should be able to know where the money's going. So transparency is very important. I think it also will build accountability. Will also build trust in the system again.
Mhm.
I think that we could go from 10% approval rate maybe to 18%
Right.
through transparency. So much like corporations that have to originate reports, I think the government should also originate reports.
Gotcha.
Another part of the transparency is also within the trading itself, trading stocks and securities and all that. In the corporate world, you have blackout periods. In the corporate world, you need to tell in advance if you're buying or if you're selling.
Mhm.
Why aren't politicians required to do that? If I work in a corporation, I was a financial advisor for a number of years. I had to get approval for every single trade I did.
Mm.
And I had blackout periods. I had to hold it for 6 months, or couldn't buy for 30 days, or couldn't buy for 60 days. I had more restrictions as a financial advisor than a politician does. So I think there should be blackout periods. If you're going to sponsor a bill, or if you're going to vote on a bill, you should not be allowed to buy or sell that stock 3 months before and 3 months after.
Okay.
The fact they're allowed to do that is just, as a financial advisor, just mind boggling.
Right.
I
Well,
don't
it's
understand that.
it's 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 more the fact that they're allowed to and you are not, right?
Yeah.
That's my perspective of it. Is so long as people are operating on an informed basis
Hmm.
and it's consenting, I generally don't have any issues. But it's the informed part that gets a lot of people, and then sometimes it's also the consent as well. Sometimes people, things are through the manipulation of laws and whatnot.
Hmm.
But for me, those are the two big criteria. And so, as long as the trades that you're making are above board,
Yeah.
then what that means is, as long as there's no restrictions on others, there is an opportunity for the market to, respond to your trade. Where so to me, it's really more of a matter of you not being able to, as a financial advisor, not so much they can. right?
Correct.
Or
Yeah.
would you disagree?
No, I agree. I mean, there are insider trading laws,
Mhm.
right? I cannot act on non-public information to benefit myself.
Mm,
However, politicians are.
right.
Hey, we're gonna bring this bill to vote in a month. Oh, cool. I'm gonna go and sell TikTok,
Right.
which was the case, right?
Mhm.
Someone sold TikTok 30 days before they brought the bill. So how is that not insider trading? How is that not
Right.
qualified? Just because you're a politician means that you cannot be responsible for insider trading.
Mhm.
So that to me, as a professional in the industry, is just I never understood. So that's part of transparency, right? Let's change the incentive structure just so that the politicians are required to do what's right.
Mhm.
I always say opportunity is the enemy of integrity. We need to remove the opportunity from the politicians in order for integrity to be there. And that's part of the accountability.
Got it. All right.
Mhm.
And then this last item here, which is a big one, that would be education.
Education,
And that
yes.
one's big everywhere. So I'm sure people's ears are perking up for this one. So what's the problem? What's the solution?
The problem is that education is going down.
Mhm.
If we look at literacy numbers, if we look at math test scores, everything's going down. Since the 60s, it has been in a down in a down spiral. Kids, I don't think are any smarter than they were before, even though we're spending a lot more money to it. So clearly, the problem is not money. The problem is how we're doing it. Is it effective? Is it not effective? If it is not effective, we need to change it. So
Mm.
I grew up in Portugal, born and raised. I came when I was 17. And I saw firsthand the difference in education in Europe and the difference in education in the US. I was shocked at the level of education in the US. I closed my eyes and I just cruised. That was it. That's how that's how much inferior it was to Europe. Now, this is not to disparage the United States or its people, but the education system is very, very poor. Not a money issue. In Portugal, we didn't spend billions of dollars like the US does.
Mhm.
So we need to think how we're doing the curriculums. We need to think how we're educating our children. We need to stop to prepare for tests. That's the way the US does it. They're not educating, they're preparing for tests. And I
Okay.
think that we're failing the American people. So by the time I was in ninth grade, I had to pick my route. What did I want to do for work once I graduated? Once I finished high school, I could go directly to medical school. Once I finished high school, I could have gone directly to law school. So that's a big difference. And there's also why we're talking about now, student loan debt and all this, because we don't do our job from K through 12. Kids go to college without any information whatsoever. And now in those 4 years, we're trying to correct what we should have done properly K through 12. And
Right.
it's costing us a lot more money. So New Jersey last year spent $7 billion in education.
Mhm.
$7 billion. That's the GDP of some countries. And
Right.
the education of their kids is probably better than ours. Right. So it's not a money issue, is what are we doing to prepare our kids? I think that we, much like Portugal, much like Germany, much like France, we should have tracks. By
Mhm.
the time you're in high school, you should know what track you want to go. Do you want to go into sciences? Do you want to go in humanities? Do you want to go, possibly, writing, or do you want to go art? Right? That should be tracks where people could then specialize, and we
Mhm.
should focus on what's important for that track in order for them to then succeed. Right? We are adding 4 years to someone's education unnecessarily. We are
Mhm.
adding $100,000 in that unnecessarily, right? And that is costing not just them, but it's also costing us now, because now we don't have a productive society. Now we have a society that is paying the government a mortgage. So you graduate high school, oh, you graduate college, $100,000 mortgage,
Mhm.
and that's fully amortized. It's not simple interest. That's fully amortized.
Mhm.
And some people might spend 20, 30 years paying it. So it's not only hurting the education, not only hurting people coming out of there, but then it's also hurting the economy, because those dollars cannot be spent on real estate. They're not being spent in the stock market. They're not being spent in businesses. That money is going to the government to fund the liabilities of the government. So we should most definitely stop that. And I think that the solution is to revamp the system, really look how we are educating, create
Mhm.
track systems just that are more efficient. Listen, if we have a brilliant person that is phenomenal in math, let's focus on that.
Okay.
Right? Let's cultivate their fascination over mathematics. And then once they leave high school, maybe they could go straight to a master's degree. Why
Right.
are we losing time with a bachelor's, right? So I think that we can most definitely be a lot more efficient.
Mhm.
We need to stop teaching for tests. We need to start teaching for careers, and I think that's where we have failed.
Let me ask you the
Mhm.
obvious question here. I
Yeah.
think it's obvious. A lot of college students will change their major several times, up to several times
Hmm.
while they're in college. And you were saying, hey, you need to figure out what track you're going to be on by ninth grade. So, what happens if a student is in 11th grade or 12th grade and they've determined, they're going to act like a college kid and they're going to say, you know what, I'd actually want to switch my track. Is there room
Yeah.
to accomplish that? Or does it not really matter because you're going to get a quality education in the first place? And if you decide later that you would rather not be in finance, that you would rather be, a historian or whatever, that because you had like, does that are we saying that you're gonna get a better education in the first
Hmm.
place, so the switch later will be easier? Or is it gonna be more difficult? You have to put more time in? Like, what's tell me how that plays out.
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, I mean, you can most definitely switch tracks
Mhm.
if you like. However, you're picking tracks based on things that you already have an interest in. I started sciences in the fifth grade.
Mhm.
Seventh grade, I was already doing chemistry, biology, physics. I loved it. So I knew what I liked. So when I went to pick my track, I'm like, oh, sciences, 100%. Like it's not even a question. I
Mhm.
hate art. I am horrible at art. So I'm not
Right.
going to do art. I'm going to do
Right.
sciences. Right. We need to allow kids to experiment. We need to
Mhm.
allow kids to develop their own personality, to develop their own interests, and then allow them to explore those interests. Right.
Mhm.
I know people that are not good in school, but they're phenomenal with their hands. Right. They're now mechanics, for example.
Right.
Right? Why don't we have a track for that? I know a lot of people also who are caring, who are empathetic. So for them, the clear option might be the healthcare, right? Now they're nurses, right? We need to cultivate what interests our children, what they're
Mhm.
good at, and then we need to build upon that. I've never seen anyone switch tracks in Portugal because once again, you already know what you like, you already have
Mhm.
experience everything. By ninth grade, we had psychology, sociology, chemistry, biology, physics,
Mhm.
three foreign languages, history, right? So we already had exposure to everything. So
Mhm.
when it came to the decision, we were like, okay, I like this, I like that. So I'm going to explore this more.
Got it.
So it's not like a forced decision. It's more of what fits you the best and what will then fit better later on, right? I
Got it.
mean, we all seen people who are engineers, and their mind, you could tell how their mind works. They just have
Mhm.
that engineer mind. So why not cultivate that for 4 years before college,
Right.
right? Really challenge them, explore what they could do, and you'll be amazed at the thing that even 10, 11, 12 grade children could do. It's just phenomenal. So yeah, I think that we should adopt something similar to that.
Okay. It sounds interesting to me because one of the things, and I don't wanna take up too much time, but I'll make this quick point. I have seen a lot of young men, young boys, get in trouble in school, and I think part
Mhm.
of it is because the work that they're doing is uninteresting to them at the time, and rather than maybe tapping into their interest that will keep their attention. It's like I was in trouble consistently when I was like I mean, when I say consistent,
Yeah.
almost daily, right? Like I was a really serious troublemaker. But I like solving problems. And my
Yeah.
wife one time made the point. She said, it's unfortunate that, you weren't given problems to solve. And she said, you might have done better talking to me. Like I might have done better. Like when I went to college, had I went and done engineering, but no
Mhm.
one ever thought, hey, you should be an engineer.
Mhm.
And she said, because my wife's an engineer, and she said, we were faced with a lot of problems to solve. So it sounds like maybe you just needed more problems to solve, and that would have kept your attention and therefore kept you out of trouble. All
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Uh, final words before we
Mhm.
close the show out.
Yeah. So final words. First and foremost, thank you so much for having me.
Mhm,
I truly enjoyed this. This was great. Um, Once again, I'm trying to change things for the American people.
mhm,
I'm putting the American people first. I want to stop the government from wasting your dollar. I want to stop the government from inflating your dollar, from making your dollar worthless. I want the American people to succeed. I look at the younger generation where they can't buy a house, they can't move out, rent is out of control,
mhm.
and that truly breaks my heart. Right? I came to this country when I was 17. I worked hard, I built myself up. I want everyone to have the opportunity to have what I have. And it wasn't that long ago. So I want to change that for the American people. I want to work for you. I want to hold other people accountable. So vote for me and let's vote for change.
Awesome. All right, Bruno, I'm going to put you backstage. You can hang out there for a moment while I close the show, or if you need to go, that's fine too. I will understand. So, but it was great having you on. Thank you for coming out or coming
Thank you.
on and, describing everything, explaining it like I'm five. I think we need to ask politicians more questions like that. It's like, hey, break this down a little bit more. Don't talk in things that people may not understand. So I appreciate the fact that you were willing and able to do that.
Mhm.
But
Thank you.
good luck on your run, and I'm gonna put you backstage and close the show out. All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. By the way, I want to point out I will actually have a second interview today, this afternoon at noon. I almost said noon o'clock. At noon at 12 o'clock, again, Eastern Standard Time. I will have Michael White, who is running for office in Arkansas. So look forward to that. Make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, please let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But